Here's what I tell patients so they come in with cancer. And why did I get it? Like, why did I get cancer? I haven't lived that badly, or I've tried to be careful, or I've done all this stuff.
I don't smoke. I don't drink. Like the usual thing. They think because I don't smoke cigarettes or drink a lot of alcohol or live this.
I've heard you say many times, aging is a mitochondrial disease. Cancer is a mitochondrial disease. And so what happens? So in our cells, there is a system whereby the cell takes in oxygen. So that's when we breathe. And it takes in fuel. So we eat, and we have carbohydrates and fats and proteins. And those things go into the cell. And in every cell, there's between 1,000 and 2,000 of these little factories, these mitochondria. Okay, in the heart there's more, in the ovary there's more, in the eye there's more. But an average cell has between 1,000 and 2,000 of these.
Think of it, 10%
like
of
10% of the body weight.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
So these things are where the oxygen and the fuel goes. And there are enzyme systems in there so that you can take apart glucose molecules or fatty acids, and you can extract the energy that's bound in those things. And then the cell can make ATP. ATP is the energy particle. And when this system is working right, you get 38 ATP for every go-around.
Right.
Okay? Now,
with oxygen.
With oxygen. Now, so that's aerobic metabolism, using oxygen. Now, in our body, so every day there's hundreds of thousands of biotoxins that are in the environment that we put on our skin, we eat, we drink, we smell, they come into our body. If our body's unable to handle those things, we have these things build up in certain areas, in certain tissues, and they're unique to each person. But when the biotoxin level in the cell, so the toxin is coming into the cell, gets enough in the cell to affect enough of the mitochondria so that they become now poisoned. They can't use oxygen to make energy anymore. Now, this was discovered by Otto Warburg, a German MD, PhD in the 1930s. He got a Nobel Prize.
Right.
The cell, when this happens, is supposed to kill itself. We have a gene in us called P53. The gene is supposed to turn on. It sends a message to the cell that autophagy, now you're supposed to die. And the cell dies. Sometimes the switch that the P53 gets turned on by is also poisoned. Now the cell can't kill itself. Now, if that abnormal cell is noticed by an immune cell, it might take it out.
Okay.
But if it's not noticed, now that cell has to transform its way to make energy without oxygen. So this is anaerobic metabolism.
Right.
Now, anaerobic metabolism is very inefficient.
Right.
If you take in no oxygen, you take in, and the preferred fuel is either glucose or some amino acids, single amino acids. Glutamine is the main one. It can make ATP, but it can only make 2 of them. It's very inefficient. Is that 38?
Barely limping along.
Right.
Okay.
And so now what this cell does is it turns on genes, so-called cancer genes. They're not cancer genes at all. These are the genes that took an embryo, a fertilized egg, and turned it into a body. Now, cancer has 2 characteristics. It grows out of control, so it grows very fast, which is what happens in an embryo. If cells growing very fast, and basically one union of a sperm and an egg, and in 9 months you got a whole developed body.
Right.
Okay?
That's incredible.
And the second thing about cancer is that these cells don't stay where they're supposed to. Like you never see a breast cell in bone in a healthy person.
Right.
They stay there. There's adhesion factors and they stay there. But in cancer, the adhesion factors are lost, which is what happens in an embryo. These cells have to move. You know, the testicles started in the kidney.
Right.
Okay? Nerves started in the spinal cord, but they got all the way out to your fingers and toes. They had to be able to move. So these cancer cells have to be able to do this. And those genes in an adult cell are turned off. So the cancer cell turns them back on. Growth genes, genes to grow new blood vessels, genes to turn up metabolism to grow faster, genes to change the surface of the cell so that it can get in more glucose.
Nutrients, yeah.
Nutrients. So a PET scan is a testament that if you have a normal cell that takes in 1 unit of glucose, I saw someone last week on the PET scan, that cell was taking in 68 units of glucose compared to the 1 in the healthy cell.
Wow.
This is a rabid tumor that was just growing crazy in the guy's liver. Okay? So the cell now is using glucose, and if it's got 68 times the metabolism, even though it's only 2, it can make a whole lot of ATP and it can grow.
Right.
And so what we got to do is we got to be able to get people on the first part of this thing. It just goes back to basic lifestyle. Like toxins do matter, and the number of them that you're exposed to does matter.
Right.
And being able to keep your liver detox systems up, and you're, going to the bathroom and getting rid of stuff and sweating and these sorts of things really matter, because the origin of this whole thing is that. Now add to it viruses. There's some viruses that are associated with cancer. And there's some funguses and fungal toxins also poison mitochondria.
So some of these mycotoxins.
These
mold
mycotoxins,
poisoning,
yeah. And parasites produce toxins. So in many cancer patients, we find mycotoxins, we find parasites, and we find viruses, HPV and retroviruses.
Present
and
in
herpes.
an enormous number of colon cancers. You were telling me 92, 93%.
Huge
Not
percentage.
Caused by, but present in.
It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the throat cancers too. They have HPV there. So these are factors which, you can't always control what you get, but if you can keep your basic health on a higher level, you can do better.
So should the average person who has history of cancer in their family that's not genetic, not BRCA related, or what testing should they get done if they want to just be sure?
If you're a female, get a breast exam every year. Get a thermogram every year. Okay? Get a pap smear.
Not a mammogram, a thermogram, and a breast exam.
That's
There's
right.
a difference. Okay.
That's right. And do self-checks. I mean, all these
Right.
sort of basic things.
Right.
And if you have something going on in your body that's not normal, don't ignore it. Find somebody who can actually check you out and find it, because the earlier it's found, the better off you're going to be.
Of course.
If you have a brewing something, it's better to get it earlier. Now, nowadays, there's all these fancy tests that are, you can get whole body MRIs, looking for stuff.
Right.
And there's good and bad to that, but sometimes you find stuff that you're glad you found it.
Right.
There's Cologuard, which is like, if you're over 30 years old, and it's actually even insurance covered, is you submit a poop specimen and you see, do you have brewing colon cancer?
Right.
Okay. And most doctors on a full physical exam will do a rectal exam, and they'll check the stool to see if there's blood in it.
Right.
Like, these are big diseases, which are, cancer is on a meteoric rise.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And so I think it is worthwhile to be prudent about looking after this stuff.
Yeah.
And then if you've got parasites, if you've got fungal toxins, is work with a practitioner who can help you get that stuff. And you'll find that your level of health will go up.
Yeah.
And you'll feel better. And then your
amazing.
chance of getting some chronic problem is way better.
It is astounding to me, prevention is the new cure. I mean, clearly, and the functional medicine, the growth of functional medicine and integrated medicine, I think, on the backs of COVID, is serving humanity well. People are awakening to the fact that they can take healthcare back into their own hands.